Alright, what we're going to look here, we're looking at joint members. So the first member of a joint, we're going to look at a tenon. So you need two members to make a joint. So this here is a tenon. Here, this is a mortise. So two members make up a joint. So this just becomes a simple mortise joint here, which is this here. So what we're going to do in this session is we're going to construct a tenon. Alright, so looking down in plan, that's what we see. We want to remove this cheek here. We want to remove this cheek. So we end up with this here, and in elevation, we're looking at it like that. So we see a solid line down there, which is this line here, and then we see another solid line down there, which is this line here. So what we need to do is we need to divide. I'm going to make the tenon a third of the thickness of the material. So the easiest way to do that, we can get this material here, we can do it a couple of ways, and we can say that this material is 35. So we can go into the calculator and go on 35 divided by 3 equals 11.6, so 11.5. Or what we can do is we can put this edge here, come out to 90 mil. So we're going from that edge there to that edge there, which is 90 mil. We're going to divide 90 by 3, which is 30. We get a bradawl and we put it on 30 and we press that in there, and then we go to 60, put a sprig point in there, and then what that does is that becomes third. And what we can do is we can get our gauge, alright, and then what we can do is we can put it in that hole, sprig hole there, just like that. And then I can check it over this side, check it over this side here, and it's exactly the same. So that gauge now is set up to 30 thirds. So this is a mortise gauge. Alright, there's a marking gauge and a mortise gauge. This has got 3 sprigs in it, or spurs. A single 1 and 2 at the back, they're a mortise, but I just call it a gauge so it doesn't confuse people. And then what we want to do is we want this distance here, which is the width of the material, which is this width here, because we're going to make the tenon in this piece, and we want it x plus 1. So x, this distance here, plus 1 here. So what we need to do, if you need to find that distance, we'll pick up a combination square, we'll slide that down till it touches the bench, and then we'll look at that and we'll call that 50 mil. So then what we're going to do is we're going to move this out by 1 mil, and that gives us 51 mil. And what we're going to do is go to the edge, or the end grain. We're going to mark that there. We're not going to draw it all the way across, we're just going to mark it. And what we're going to do is get a square, and we're going to square that around, like so. So we end up with that squared all around that piece of material. So now we've got our gauge set up. We're going to score the lines around. So we're going to come across here, and we're going to start on that line that we made, and lightly and a little bit harder. So you want to pass it about 4 times. We're going to go to the other side. We're going to score that like so. And we're going to do it this way. We're going to score back in that way till we get to that line, flick it over, score back in that way, then what we're going to do is we're going to go across the top in the end grain, turn it around, go across in the end grain. And then what we've got is those marks, which I'll darken up for you so we can see. So we've got that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, and that one. So what we want to do is we want to take out this cheek here, and we want to take out this cheek here. So how we do that is we put it in the jaws at 45 degrees. We don't put it in straight up, we put it at 45 degrees, and then we clamp the jaws up. And then what we do is we get the saw and we cut half of the line, so we start going down at 45 degrees, like so, and we can actually see it tracking down that line there and tracking down this line here. Checking to make sure that it's tracking down both lines exactly. And then it's stopping at that point there. So what I've done is I've cut into there and I've cut there. So I'll do that to both sides. Checking again, I'm going down straight to both sides. Now what I'm going to do, take this out, I'm going to spin it around, 45 degrees again, and then I'm going to cut it, and it's going to track up this way. Put this in here. I don't have to really track it at the front because it's on the end grain, it's already there. Okay, so that's what it looks like so far. And then it's got those two cuts in it running like that. Now all we do is we put it vertical in the jaws, drop it down a bit. I'll just clamp this here, give me a bit more strength. And then it's just a simple matter of holding the saw horizontally and just cutting. Cutting down to the shoulder, and the two cuts that you first made will just guide the saw, so you don't really have to. The saw could do with a bit of the sharpening. Alright, then what we're going to do is just take the cheeks out. So what we need to do is get a bench hook, go over here, hold the material into there, get the shoulder line, check that you're cutting it square. There's one of the cheeks, turn it over. Check that you're cutting it square both sides. And there you end up with the simple tenon, which is that there. Get rid of the cheeks. So that's what we end up with. That's the tenon there. Alright, and in elevation the cuts we did are that. So that's the method we use to cut a member of the joint being the tenon. Alright, I'll see you next session for another joint member. Thank you.